Hey, this is In Your Best Interest. I'm Philipp Müller. This is part one of our two-part series with Calvin Teo about entrepreneurship and alternative investing as an asset class. Calvin is the co-founder and CEO of Funding Societies, an online peer-to-peer lending platform. Calvin shared his experience on co-founding a startup while he was still in school, as well as the added challenge of managing it from halfway across the world while still having to secure funding. I hope you enjoy it, and if you do, be sure to subscribe and consider leaving us a review and sharing it with your friends. Hello listeners, welcome to another episode of In Your Best Interest, your finance topic podcast. With us today, I'm very pleased to have Calvin Teo. He's the group CEO and co-founder of Funding Societies. Hello, Calvin.
Hi, Philipp. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for being part of this. I think we have a lot of super interesting topics in store for today with Calvin. Obviously, coming from an entrepreneurial background, I really want to, get you guys some insights onto entrepreneurship and what it takes, to start your first business or start any kind of business, as well as being the CEO of Funding Societies as an alternative investment player in the fintech space here in Southeast Asia. I thought it was also super interesting to go into alternative investing as an asset class as well with Calvin. But before we do this, Calvin, I always like to, get a little bit background on you as a person and, kind of maybe your upbringing. We do it with all the guests that are on the show because I think it really, helps people understand where you are now from where you came from. So maybe just to start with that, can you tell us a little bit more about where you grew up and maybe where you went to university, etc.?
Sure. So I'm Malaysian by birth. Grew up in a small town called Senai, with about 100 to 150,000 population, known for oil palm plantation and manufacturing. So I came to Singapore on a scholarship by the Singapore government at the age of 15, and went to university in Singapore. Went to National University for my tertiary education in accountancy, where I graduated valedictorian. Subsequently, during that period of time, also did a year of entrepreneurship minor in US with the University of Pennsylvania. So, and that's where the whole interest towards entrepreneurship started.
Oh, no, interesting. So at 15, you already you left your hometown to come to Singapore to study. I think this is something Freddie did as well, coming from Malaysia over as well. So what was that? What was that like? I imagine you'd still be at 15. You're still young, leaving home. What was it like coming to Singapore then and being by yourself?
Oh, it was actually perfect. My family, my parents were a bit sad that I was leaving home so early at a young age. For me, I thought it was a excellent opportunity because Senai was a relatively small town, so there wasn't a lot of opportunities. So that really gave me the education, the exposure to actually do what I'm currently doing. So the experience was phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I can imagine lots of new sensories, especially with Singapore and coming to Singapore from a small town. That's super interesting. I myself, I went to high school in the US for a year at 15 as well. So by myself, I think it shapes you for life, right? Those experiences make you a lot more independent as well. But yeah, so when you said then you went to university here in Singapore, did some stint in the US as well. What was your majors that you studied, and why did you choose them?
Sure. So I studied business administration with a specialization in accountancy.
Okay.
And the key reason is because I'm interested in business in general, and that being a traditional Chinese, accountancy is considered the core, the basics of business, and it's an iron rice bowl. So that's why we picked it. It's a professional degree that will allow you to continuously find jobs. So that was a basic thinking around the choice. But I think I picked National University of Singapore for a very specific reason, and that was for its overseas college program, the entrepreneurship program that allowed me to study in a university overseas at an entrepreneurial city. So studying part-time while working at a startup for part-time for a period of 1 year. So it was for that very specific program that I've chose to go to NUS, and that has been life-changing.
Yeah. What company did you do the entrepreneurial? When you said you worked at a startup there, what was that startup?
The name of the startup was iMeet.
Okay.
It's a hospitality platform to connect hospitals with the hospitality platform that connects hotels with their overseas counterparts.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, no, super interesting. But I think those programs are so valuable. I think I haven't heard of many of them, but in Germany there's a program where I'm originally from, where students can, once you get out of high school, you can choose to go full-time to university, or you can actually choose to work for the big companies like SAP or Bayer or Daimler. They have these programs where you kind of you work for a few days a week, or 2 days a week, or 3 days a week, and the other time you're studying at university actually. So they're kind of paying for it, but while you get valuable work experience on top of the university stuff as well. So I think super good combination. So for listeners that are interested in getting exposure to work while also studying, I think this is a great alternative to just doing programs where you just do internships in the summer, right? It's kind of the same, but a little more immersive, I would say. No, super cool. So after university then, did you straight go into entrepreneurship, or did you go first into like a consulting or an accounting kind of type of job?
So upon graduation, I actually chose the safer path, which was to enter into consulting. My first role was basically as a strategy consultant with Accenture Management Consulting for a year plus, and subsequently McKinsey someone from McKinsey actually reached out to me and asked if I would be interested to join them. So after a year plus with Accenture, I basically moved on to McKinsey for management consulting for another 2 more years. Got as usual, if you perform reasonably well, the McKinsey basically gives you a sponsorship for you to do your masters, and they basically pay for your masters with the condition that you have to come back to work for them for 2 years. So I took up that offer, and in the interim between starting between getting a university before entering MBA, I basically worked for about 1 year at KKR Capstone, which is basically the operating arm of the private equity firm.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So super interesting. So then, getting your first job in strategy with a consulting firm, I always like to ask our listeners, our guests actually, what did you do with your first paycheck? Because we get really interesting answers from people, and they vary very widely. But what was it for you? After studying so hard, going through moving to Singapore, going to school, what was it that you bought with your first paycheck?
I gave it to my mom.
Oh, very honorable, and I also very along the lines what Freddie has done as well, which you haven't listened yet to, because at the time of this recording, it wouldn't have been out yet. But yeah, okay, very interesting, but honorable thing to do. The other thing is, before we go right into the entrepreneurship topic, is I like to ask, what is the best investment you have ever made? And it can be a financial investment, can be whatever it might be for you. What was it that stands out in your?
I think I can, for the best investments I've made, I can perhaps talk about financial investments or asset classes I've invested. But in all candor, I find that the two most meaningful one to me, one was education, and another was basically the house, or more specifically a home, right? So from an education perspective, after receiving the offer from Harvard Business School, in all candor, I did consider whether to give up the offer, primarily because KKR was an excellent place to be in, and it does prepares me for the next for entrepreneurship eventually. So if you are already in a place that you are in, why do you still go back to spend 2 years on an education? But I personally find that has been one of the most empowering experiences that I've had. May not be financially NPV positive, but from an overall holistic perspective, I think it is one of the most fantastic investments I've made. And of course, a home is a home because it gives one sense of rootedness, and that helps to plan for your life, and of course to put things into perspective.
No, that's great. I think a home, I feel very strongly, just like you, about as well. And then yeah, I think education makes a lot of sense, and especially from you, as I was doing my research for today's podcast. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think during your studies in your MBA at Harvard, you actually met your co-founder, right, Renaud, from funding societies, and the idea was born there. So I think that must have that's a good bridge to your entrepreneurship story. But I think that probably adds to that why you ranked this so high as a good investment, right?
Yep, it is, and that is still true regardless of whether the startup eventually becomes successful or not. Because I think the whole experience itself is once in a lifetime, and if you miss this window of opportunity, you miss it for life.
Yeah. So with that being said, I think we kind of like moved through your history. Then to me, what stood out, what I would like to understand better is funding societies, first of all, the first business you ever started? So did you go straight from your KKR MBA, or did you do something in between, maybe in high school or in university, that prepared you for this step?
Besides the entrepreneurship program, I did this was our very first startup, and the reality is that when I decided to do my master's at Harvard, it wasn't because, hey, I was looking to start a company after. It was really all stars aligning, and that finding out this is a business that I'm passionate about. So I'm interested in starting funding societies. I'm not interested in starting any other business. And the reason that we think funding societies is special is because it is really solving a big problem, a generation shifting problem for Southeast Asia, and that we are passionate about the underdogs, the SMEs that usually are facing some financing challenges that is hindering them from fulfilling their full potential. And there's a realistic path for us to be number one. So it's really because of us chancing upon this opportunity that is very much aligned to our heart and aligned to our market, such that we decided to start this company. So we are not interested in entrepreneurship in general. We're just interested in solving this problem specifically.
Yeah, which is the societal problem, and I think especially the SME space. It's not like your peer-to-peer lending, like the big players that started in the US first in this area, where they were giving loans to individuals, right? Because they wanted to refinance their credit card. I can actually see, hey, this can make an impact, right? This can help a SME to grow further, right? To become something bigger, to solve a need in the community, etc. This must been one of you guys' aspirations there as well, right?
Yep, I get it is also exactly why we have called ourselves funding societies, right? Is to basically fund the growth and fund the development of societies in Southeast Asia.
Yeah, and Calvin, then if we take a step back into you guys, you coming to the Harvard campus doing your MBA, why did you guys decide to start it, or how did the idea come up while you were studying for your MBA?
So the idea came up when someone from funding circle came to speak to at the university. We found that as a business model that could potentially work in Southeast Asia if we adapt it to the local context. So right after that talk, I found it really interesting. Decided to research more. Went to the West Coast to visit the various peer-to-peer lending platforms in US at that point in time to really understand the business. Pitch it to Renaud because just myself, we will not be able to create a company that is number one in the space. But I think together, because of complementary skill sets and background, we have a realistic chance to be number one. So so I shared the idea with him. Very fortunate that A, his core values is very much in alignment with me, and B, he's also passionate about this space because he comes from a family business background, and his family went through a near-death experience when their credit line was withdrawn. So because of that, we started spending more time on the idea, and before we know it, the business was incorporated.
So you already incorporated while still being in school?
Yes, correct. We started the company while we were still in school. In fact, we raised our seed round and Series A while in school.
Oh wow, that's super interesting. And I want to get into how to get financing to start a company here soon. The other thing I wanted to get to though was when you guys started the business. How did you make sure that yes, you guys were aligned, but in order to start funding societies, you also needed to have a tech background, right? It's a fintech company, it's a platform, you have an app and everything. When you first started out, working on the business plan together, the idea made sense. What are the other hurdles that you had to overcome? And I'm just thinking out loud because I'm not coming from a tech background myself neither, right? So how did you find the right people to start working on the product?
So that's a very good question, because who would want to work for two students who have never started a company before, who are not physically around in the country that the company is being started?
Yes.
So that was a big challenge for us, and I think but I think to us the key was to start somewhere. So through relationships we were introduced by an IT firm in Jakarta, who was willing to basically build a product for us. So literally we use a vendor to build a product initially.
Okay.
And when the company gained traction, we basically asked the founder of that IT company to shut down the company and join us, which he did. So we were very fortunate to be able to start to build a product, build a product while we were still in school like that. Yeah.
Yeah, super interesting. And I think we're recording this during the COVID-19 period, right? So I think this building a company like you guys did remotely, I think is this was already a few years ago. I think now it will gain even more traction, right? Because tech teams can be scattered around the globe. You can now find take talent from anywhere and still make it work. And I think this is really, I think this period in time right now is probably a huge accelerator in that space. So right now, do you guys have your team then all centrally located, or are they still scattered around a bit?
Currently the team is scattered because we are currently present in 4 countries. So Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia. We have a satellite office in Thailand. So as SME Finance is a very localized business, it's a regulated business in each of the country, and we're licensed in each of the country. We need to have a local team in them. Whereas there are regional teams where local presence is not as important. For example, product data engineering, finance, accounting, legal, HR. So these functions are less localized. So to that extent, we basically set up center of excellence based on where we can find great talent.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense there. So let's get back then to, you already mentioned it. You mentioned financing, right? And I think for a lot of people, when they look at, hey, maybe quitting their job, or they have a business plan in mind, the next thing is, how do you get financing, right? How do you start? Do you go out and ask your family and friends for angel investing round? Do you directly go to VCs? You mentioned you guys raised the seed round already in college. So maybe you can go a little bit in more detail on what your thinking was behind getting funding for the business in the beginning, and what your steps were in reaching that goal.
I think we were very fortunate in a sense that we were able to raise our seed round from Alpha JWC, which is an Indonesian-based venture capital firm, during our summer holidays in our masters. The fact is that when we first started the company, our plan was to bootstrap, but we realized that timing is very important. The window of opportunity is closing. If we do not build up establish ourselves fast enough, we'll miss the window of opportunity. So instead of bootstrapping, we decided to raise funds. And I think how we just got extremely lucky in the process that during summer holidays we came back to work with our team. So basically, at that point in time, we have a team of 4, whom we recruited by posting ads on startupjobsasia.com, so on the website, and interview through Skype, and managing the teams through Skype and emails, right? So we basically met the team for the very first time after working for a few months. So during those months, Reno and I basically worked from 8 p.m. to 4 a.m. Boston time, so that because it's 12 hours difference compared to Singapore, so that we can be the team can feel that we are present. But I think the summer holidays allow us to actually really be physically present with this team. And that's when they share with us the whole Tech in Asia pitching competition. We went there, we pitched, we happened to win it. There was some media coverage for that. VCs started approaching us, and we were fortunate to sign a deal with Alpha JWC before we returned back to college.
And when, so after funding, how long was it until you guys were able to go live with the product?
Oh, we went live before the funding.
Oh, before the funding already.
So after incorporating, within 100 days of incorporation, we have launched the platform. So when we went into a pitching competition, we actually have a live business with some customers already.
Oh wow! So rapid development there, even from abroad. So this is super cool to hear. But so then you got the funding. Kind of, what were the next steps? Like, how did you manage to grow the company and build a customer base up till now? And I'm especially interested because for you actually have 2 kinds of customers, right? You have to have relationships with companies, the SMEs. Plus, you have to have relationship with investors who provide the funding to the SMEs. So you actually have to basically acquire 2 sets of customers with different needs. So how did you guys manage to do that and grow up till now?
Sure. I think there are quite a few articles and knowledge research online on how to solve a 2-sided platform problem. Right. I think for us, we took the approach of getting natural advantages on one side, and then work to solve the other side. And I think the natural advantage the side that we chose to use natural advantage was on the investor side. So very fortunate that Reno has a family business that can help us to bankroll some of these loans initially. Mm-hmm. So the family was agreed to fund the first $1 million of loans. So really grateful for the family. And that meanwhile we start building up the base for both borrowers and investors. So with that initial funds, at least we can be assured that any borrowers that we onboard, there is money to be lent, and that helps to kickstart the traction of the overall platform. So when the platform just started, it was, even though it's a crowdfunding business, it was a crowd of 2, basically Reynolds and I. But we're very fortunate that through PR and media who have been really kind to us, we managed to attract to gradually attract quite a number of investors through press coverage.
So that's then kind of some nice insights on how to grow the business and how you've done this on both sets of customers. Let's talk about some of the challenges that you faced, right? If there's any 1 or 2 challenges that you would single out as the biggest ones so far, or is there anything that was really challenging? I know starting a business is always challenging, but there might be 1 or 2 where you're like, oh my gosh, is this actually going to work, right? Or do we have to close down the shop? Have you had those moments yet?
My theory is that you have to go through 3 near-death experiences before you become really successful. I think there have been major episodes of challenges for us in the last few years, be it in terms of being attacked by bigger tech firms, as well as the first major default. And of course, as COVID hits, this is a difficult period for everyone. I think we are relatively fortunate to have our Series C money in right before amidst COVID. But I think I think in the case of in the startup situation, there isn't quite a cookie cut. There are common problems that most startups face as they scale up, from an organizational behavior perspective or from a unit economics perspective. But I do reckon that a lot of these challenges seem really big at that point in time. But when you break it down to smaller pieces and solve it bit by bit, and you look back, you realize that actually it's not as big a deal after you've passed through that.
Yes, I think that's a good approach, the piece by piece, right? Because the problems seem mounting at the time, and then if you just cut them up, like you said, they seem a little bit more easier to solve or easier to swallow. So that's a very good lesson there. What is then your vision for funding societies? Let's look 5, 10, 15 years into the future. Where do you see funding societies? Is it more on a maybe expansion in different markets? Is it other products? How do you see this company of yours evolve?
So I think our vision is to evolve into a full stack SME financing platform, right? And when I say full stack, is how can we not just provide financing, but really provide other forms of services that can help SMEs to grow from a technology and non-technological perspective, and eventually assisting not just SMEs in Singapore, Indonesia, Malaysia, but covering all key 6 economies of Southeast Asia.
Okay, so expansion, product expansion as well, being there more holistically and with different products for the SMEs is your vision in the future. Then what is some advice to close off the entrepreneurial section? What is some of the one piece of advice that you would give to our listeners who want to become entrepreneurs themselves?
I think I find entrepreneurship is a hot topic. I'm not sure if it's still going to be a hot topic after COVID-19, but a lot of people like to talk about it with starry eyes. That hey, it's a romantic experience. You have full autonomy to do what you want, so and so forth, right? But I think the reality is that the whole entrepreneurship experience is extremely hard, and that unless you have a very clear reason as to why you want to do it, it is not. So it is very important to know why you want to do it before you embark on that journey, because the challenges will come. The rewards is great if the company is successful, but the challenges will come. And when hard times is going, you will not be thinking about the rewards. You'll be thinking about your North Star in terms of why you are doing what you are doing, right? So having that self-awareness and clarity, I think, is very important before one starts their company.
Thanks for that advice. I think that's valuable lesson there from a successful entrepreneur like Calvin for all the listeners out there.
That's it for the show this week. Thanks for listening. If you like what you heard, subscribe and leave us a review. The reviews really help us, and we love reading your comments as well. In Your Best Interest is hosted by me, Philipp Müller. We're produced by Stashaway, and we're mixed by Mo Ramley. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notified whenever we have new content out for you. Also, don't forget to download the Stashaway app. It's available in the Apple App Store as well as the Google Play Store, so you can start on your financial journey right now.